Hello, hello. Right, in a second, well, first of all, happy Monday. Happy New Year. I'm super excited about my first guest of 2021. Her name is Erica Derrickson, and I met her, I think, exactly a year ago. Hey guys, welcome. I met her exactly a year ago, the last time I was on Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, and just really serendipitously ran across her this artist community where she was living, and I think I was there to teach a self-defense class across the road at another permaculture farm. Here she is, and I'm very excited to bring her on today to talk about her travels and her new book. So.
Oh, good morning.
Good
Hi.
morning. Was that your view?
Yeah, I'll flip the camera again while I figure out my screen. I'm here coming to you live from Guatemala in Lake Atitlan, where the sun has risen and it's a beautiful freaking day again. And I thought I would come out here to do the interview outside because you can't really, it doesn't get better than this.
No, oh my gosh, I missed that view. I was just remembering it's been like exactly a year since I was on the lake, and I think I forgot how beautiful it is.
Yeah, I think we met a year ago at the lake. We met at the farm at Gran Hatsikin. You were teaching a workshop, and I just remember how badass you were.
Yeah, exactly. And that was also when I came across the community that you're living at.
Yeah, Karuna, really, really special place. I'm really grateful a year later to still be here. I didn't expect, I had really no expectations of Guatemala, and I came here and I just found a home and I found community and I found, my creative flow. I wrote my book here, and it's something that I've wanted to do for over 10 years, and it all just like came together.
So, oh, I have so many questions, but how long have you been in Guatemala now?
It's a little over a year. I arrived last year the day after Thanksgiving. In fact, I remember I was traveling on Thanksgiving. I spent Thanksgiving dinner at a IHOP on the side of the road in Texas because nothing was open, and so I had runny eggs. My dog Bella is here with us. Bella, hi sweets. She just jumped down the hill I'm sitting in front of. Hi everyone. I see people logging on. I recognize a lot of names from my audience. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining today. Yeah, so I've been here a little over a year now, and I don't have plans to leave, although I do feel a call to go do some traveling around Mexico. Um,
Mm.
and maybe we'll talk about that later. But it's been a little over a year, which is kind of unusual for me because I've been traveling on and off for about 6 years, and I never really stayed in one place more than like 4 or 5 months. I would go back to places, but I never like consecutively stayed in one place as long as I have here. So in some ways, like this place feels more like home than in any place in the world for me.
I feel you. I was exactly the same until I came to Costa Rica 3.5 years ago, and 3.5 years later, I'm still based here.
Wow.
And I'm curious to know if, for me, so I wrote my book last year and published it last year, and for me, being rooted in one place was a big part of actually being able to drive forward that project. Do you think it was the same for you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I remember before I found Guatemala, I've been doing all this traveling. I was bumping around between Thailand. I was in India a couple trips. Then I was in Indonesia, and then before Guatemala, I was actually in Egypt. And I remember having this like sense of like, oh, I was like longing for a home. Like I was doing all this traveling, but I was longing for a home and just feeling like, oh, if only I had a strong foundation, then I could really, drive these different projects that I want to do. Because, when you're traveling all the time and constantly changing location, it's like, it's a plant. It's like a plant that's being ripped up by the roots, and you can't really grow into your fullness if you're always first of all, you can't grow into your fullness if you're not in the right pot of soil.
Mm.
And you can't grow into your fullness if you keep ripping yourself out and you don't have that foundation.
Right, because then you keep putting all of your energy into putting like growing your roots back, and you don't have so
Yeah,
much time to maybe to grow that way.
exactly. I love the metaphor of I learned so much from plants and trees. I think they have a lot of wisdom and medicine and teachings for us if we're wise enough to listen and pay attention. And I love the message from trees. It's like grow slowly. And I think it's really easy in our world today. It's so fast paced and I want it now. I want the results now. But really, like the real magic of life happens when we do root ourselves and give ourselves that chance to really just nourish ourselves in the way that we need. And like one plant will have different needs than another. One needs more sun, one needs less sun. I'm part mermaid, so I don't do well in the sun anyway. Um,
Some need more salt
unlike
water.
I was gonna say, unlike Miss Bella here. Oh, she was just rolling around in the sun. I was gonna get that shot, but she moved. Oh gosh. Well, okay, here we go. I'm precariously poised in a flower bed. Hi
So,
everyone, I
Erica,
see you guys logging on. Just want to say hey to our viewers, hey to our live viewers, and hey to our viewers who are going to be watching after the live is done. Yay, you love the hummingbirds, says Dee. Great. All right, I'll be quiet. Preguntame.
well, I think, I mean, a lot of the people tuning in probably already know about your book, but just for those who will tune in who don't, can you share what your book is about and how it came to be?
Yeah, sure. So I remember, I think it was back in 2008. It was my first trip to India. And I remember going to this like banyan tree and just having this incredible adventure. And I could feel that this incredible journey was changing me. And that's when I had the idea that, I need to write a book about my experiences out in the world. People need to know that there's this whole other life available to us if we dare to leave behind our homeland and set out on the adventure. In fact, the Buddha has a quote. It's like, leaving your home is like half of the journey. So my book is called Leaving America with Erica, How to Travel and Set Yourself Free. And essentially it's a guidebook for anybody who longs to set out into the world and discover their own personal adventure. Whether that's to a place like India or Thailand or Italy or wherever your heart is calling you. I essentially wrote a book to help guide people through the internal and external journey that you're going to have to take in order to face your fears and do the scary thing that ultimately is what makes your heart sing. So
Mm.
it shows a process, from it teaches people how to connect with their hearts, it teaches people how to connect with their intuition, it teaches people how to make a declaration to the universe that they're going to go do the scary thing, like go traveling to India for 6 months. I draw a lot about from my story about going to India and what it was like for me to make those really scary choices. And to go through that process. In fact, one of my friends, Wendy Renee, actually a member from my audience, she came recently to visit me here in Guatemala. Well, she came to Guatemala for her own adventure, and that includes visiting me. And she's essentially going through the book. She's working her way through the book. Making the decision, challenging her fears, challenging her self-sabotage, and then she got to the point where she's about to leave. And I was meditating one morning. It was like it was like a day or two before she was going to arrive. And I was meditating, and I was like, you know what? I think Wendy probably will need to read chapter 9 because chapter 9 is all about stepping into the new and how you might freak out and doubt everything and want to throw the whole plan away. And so I came out of meditation and I turned on my phone, and literally the first message in my inbox was Wendy going, Erica, I'm freaking out. And so I
Oh my
told her,
God.
Wendy, perfect, go read chapter 9. So she did. She was at the airport and she sent me a picture. She's literally sitting at the airport sending me a selfie picture, pointing to the page with these wide eyes, going, Erica, you are literally talking to me right now. You're literally writing what I'm going through. Like, you're sitting at the airport, you're feeling scared, you're doubting things, like, but keep going, like, hold the course. And then now Wendy's here, she's living at Karuna, actually, in my old house where I wrote my book. And she is so happy, and she is so grateful, and she is just, she's having her adventure. So that's what the book is for. It's designed to teach people how to face their fears and set out on their own adventure and ultimately listen to the call of their heart.
Do you feel like you were writing to your earlier self as you're writing this book, or was there a specific
Oh, yeah.
human?
Well, okay. So, yeah. So yeah, yes and no. I was writing to myself, but more so. So I was part of a book coaching program, an author program called the Author Incubator. And one of the exercises they had us do, we had to prepare for a month and a half before we even started writing. The writing was like the fastest part. The preparation was the longest part. And so a part of that was constructing our ideal reader. Who are we talking to? What is their problem? And what is the problem that we're solving? So I can tell you the ideal reader who I created, this avatar, her name is Kylie Starr. She's 28 years old. She's a nurse in Indiana, and she's very unsatisfied with her life. Her father's an alcoholic. Her mother is a codependent enabler. And she works at this hospital where her bosses don't respect her, and she's really like stifled and struggling. And her best friend, Charlie, he's kind of like a quirky, crazy guy, is kind of like her lifeline. And there's a unfortunate accident, a drunk driving accident, where Charlie dies. Charlie dies, and it's this like devastating thing in Kylie's life. And she gets to the point where she is about to commit suicide. She's literally like standing on a bridge, looking down at the water, imagining what it'll feel like to essentially die. And that's when like she's holding on, and that's when I love this part. I get so emotional. That's when she like gets a sense, like wait, Kylie. And she feels Charlie's presence, and he says, don't do it. He says, don't do it. He says, go to Montezuma, tell our story. And it's like, okay, because Charlie and Kylie had this plan to go traveling. And Kylie was always kind of putting it off, and like it was like a drunken preteen sort of pact they made. And she never really took it seriously, but he did. And so he appears to her in spirit form at the point of her potential suicide and implores her to go on the adventure. And so she pulls back. That's just when a car pulls up and the lady's like, are you okay? It feels like a scene from a movie. And so Kylie goes then Kylie goes home, and she starts getting online and starts Googling, is it safe to travel alone as a woman? How do you start backpacking? How do you backpack the world? Like, how do you get started traveling? And so my book pops up. So the book is designed to help people start traveling, especially women traveling alone who maybe have fears about, is it safe to travel alone? Can I do this? Will people think I'm crazy? What do I say to my parents? Like, you know, all of these things. So it's a book that's specifically designed to solve that problem. But the interesting thing that I found, though, is that more so who my message in my book is connecting with are more like middle-aged women who have been through some like shit and been through maybe some traumatic experiences in life and are looking to change their lives. And that's who this is really resonating for. So in a lot of ways, I'm writing to my younger self because I was miserable. I was in a job that I hated. I contemplated suicide. I thought suicide might be the only way out. And I had to go on a journey to ultimately learn who I really am and what I really wanted. And that involved setting out into the world and listening to my heart. And actually, it was the trip to my 6-month trip to India was spurned by my sister telling me she was pregnant. And my sister's 2 years older than me. So it felt like a big shock and like a reminder of my mortality. If my sister is having a baby, that means I'm going to have a baby soon. That means I got to go do this thing. I got to go travel the world now. You know, I responded like, you know, an average person responds to the news that their sibling is having a child. So I decided to go to India for 6 months. And that was really scary. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it. It felt really big and impossible. It felt like a David and Goliath kind of situation. So, you know, I had all of those feelings. So I was writing the book to my earlier self. In fact, I wrote this book to be a sort of guide that I wish someone had given to me, or the guide that I wish I had when I was feeling scared, when I felt like it was impossible, when I felt like this was a crazy thing to do and it couldn't possibly work. I wish someone had given me this book because I would have just downed it and I would have put it into practice. And I would have ended up a place like this.
And here you are.
And here I am. So I lived the book, and that's the story that I'm telling. Is that you too can tune into the call of your heart. You too can find a way to make the impossible possible. You too can find a way to afford it, even if you can't afford it. You don't have to be the victim of your circumstances. You can choose to take responsibility and start making different choices. Because that's really what it comes down to. Changing our lives and changing the trajectory of our lives really comes down to recognizing our choices, recognizing our patterns, and then choosing to do something different, which is really apt for this time of year. We're stepping into 2021, and this is a time of New Year's resolutions and people wanting to make changes. And the first step is to look at yourself and what have I been choosing, and where is that led me? Okay, if I want to go someplace else, well, I got to start choosing something else.
And you mentioned, Erica, that there's a focus on women who are thinking about traveling and all of the sort of extra fears that brings up. And that's a good segue. Just a little bit of context for people who don't know what this series is about. This series is called Who Vagabond, and it came out of the book that I published last year, Vagabondess, which is a guide really specifically for women who want to travel solo. And I resonated since I first heard of your book, Erica, because there are so many parallels with what I was trying to do with mine. And, I think we have sort of a similar goal with what we're writing and what we want to inspire people and support people to do as they travel and as they face their fears, whether that's by traveling internationally or by doing anything else in their life. And then after publishing my book, I decided that I really wanted to switch my focus and amplify voices of other badass solo female travelers, because there's so many in my network and they're doing such amazing things, and each one has a voice and a perspective that I want to hear and that I want to share with my community. So that's what this comes out of. And so I do want to sort of narrow in a little bit on the theme of solo female travel and ask you about your experience, not just as a solo traveler, but as a woman traveling alone.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to travel alone as a woman. Even before you leave your country, as soon as you declare that you want to travel alone, all of this fear mongering comes at you from friends and family and people who understandably care about you. I think there's a lot of programming to view, the other, the outside. It's dangerous. And, when I was going to India, people were like, you're going to get groped, you're going to get raped. It's horrible. And even now, as I'm thinking of going to Mexico, I know there's so much fear. There's so much fear around, for people around Mexico. But the irony is every single person I talk to who's been to Mexico can't say enough good things about it, how amazing it is and how sweet the people are and just what a beautiful country it is and just wow. So, traveling alone as a woman definitely requires a lot of courage, and it's also an incredible growth opportunity. I think that we, especially as women, we're naturally nurturers. We're naturally tuned in and tracking the energy and emotions and well-being of others. That's what makes a good mother. You have to be tuned in to the needs of the child. And I think that transfers over very seamlessly into oftentimes taking care of other people in our lives. So setting out and traveling alone, for me, I'll never forget the first time I arrived in Thailand back in 2008 by myself. It was kind of shocking at first because there was nobody, I was the captain of my ship. There was nobody to check in with. There was nobody to ask permission from. There was nobody to what do you want to do? It's no, what do I want to do? So it was incredibly liberating for me to really be charting my own course and really be having that experience where I was getting to explore, who I am and what I want. And I would say that, this extension of where I am today in Guatemala, living this life that is, not without its trials and sorrows, but it's a full and rich existence where I'm more in tune with who I really am than ever before. But in order to get to this place, I had to leave behind the expectations of others. I had to leave behind the attachment to a comfortable home. I had to leave behind the attachment to certain people in my life. I had, when I was going traveling in India, I had to break up. I essentially had to break up with my boyfriend. And that was a really painful process. And in fact, I wish I had just been more honest and upfront instead of having to leave to another country to make this painful, long, drawn out breakup. So, and then, in terms of safety, one thing I'm always talking about with people, because that's one of the primary questions that we get, is it safe? How do you travel alone as a woman? I would say one of the most important things is on this journey is really learning to trust ourselves and tune into our intuition. One of my journeys, and this is actually something I talk about in my book, the Jaisalmer camel scandal in the desert of Jaisalmer in the Thar desert in India. I essentially was prey to a con. And that was because I was judging things on how they looked from the outside. It's well, this guy seems like a nice, sweet, innocent man from the desert, but really he was trying to con me, and he did. So, cons are one thing, your physical safety is another thing. I think it's really important, again, to trust your intuition. And also, I think it's really important that we stay really clear-minded on the road. If you're drinking a lot of alcohol, if you're drinking alcohol, period, or if you're doing drugs, or like, while there can be a time and place for those medicines for some people, on the road, we really need to have sharp and clear senses. We really need to have a clear mind, because if we start distorting our mind, we become more vulnerable and prey to people who want to take advantage of people who have like a weak mind and or maybe are scared or lonely, So, I have really had to learn how to say no, how to say like no, like back off, instead, because I remember at the beginning I was trying to be nice to everybody and like, oh, like that's, oh, like I would, like if someone did something I felt uncomfortable, I didn't want to like, I'm just, trying to be sweet and nice to everybody. Now it's like, back off, you back off, and so in a way, we're learning to use our energy, and if we're always trying to people please, we're much more vulnerable to being taken advantage of. So, learning to like own a sacred no, learning to like really own our strength. I think that's why traveling alone as a woman can be so empowering, because you're put in these situations where you will have to say no, where you will have to recognize, wait a minute, I don't feel comfortable in this situation. And then you leave. You leave. Yeah. You don't try to manage everyone's emotions and make sure everyone likes you. No, you stand up for yourself, and sometimes that means, maybe coming off as a little rude. But if coming off as a little rude stops you from being like robbed or inappropriately touched, go for the rude. Go for the rude all day long.
Yes. Yes, so much.
So much yes.
So much yes. Yeah, it's this has come up in a few talks that I've done, because it is such a theme for women, and then even more of a theme for women traveling solo, because you're in a different culture. You don't want to offend your hosts or whoever the people may be that you're interacting with, and this theme of I don't want to offend anyone, and wanting to be nice is such a core narrative that I found in women who travel alone, and it's not easy to overcome that, because it's really embedded in us from a really young age.
Part of our Disney programming.
Disney programming, exactly. And well, I
was going to add, learning to stand up for ourselves, that doesn't mean we need to be rude. Like, we can learn to be graceful of like, no, thank you. Like, actually, no. Actually, I'm going to go this way. Actually, I want to be alone. Actually, no, you can't sit with me. I want to be alone. Like, thank you very much. Like, thank you. I appreciate it. So, we can learn to have grace with how we stand up for ourselves and protect ourselves. So it doesn't have to be, it might be a little messy at first while we're learning the new skill, but I believe that we really can develop that grace, and that is part of showing up with integrity in life as
sure.
Women of dignity, and we respect ourselves, and we maintain a standard of like, if you're going to be in my sphere, you're going to respect me. Otherwise, you're not allowed in my sphere.
Sure. Sure, and of course, I think, of course, you can say no with a smile. You can say no gracefully and kindly, but you don't have to. There's no obligation to always be nice and always be polite. What are some other things you do to sort of stay in your power when you're traveling solo in moments that you feel vulnerable or you feel maybe disempowered?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, this is an important question no matter where we are in the world, whether we're traveling or we're at home. What do we do to stay in our center? What do we do when the waves of life come crashing down on us, whether that's at home or abroad? And this is why, for me, recently, one of my biggest themes of my journey has been really establishing my practice of meditation, my practice of yoga, my practice of really managing my energy in a healthy way. One thing is, if you're feeling uncomfortable and you just like reach for a drink to make you feel better, that can give like a little instant hit of dopamine and relief. But then you're opening yourself up you've made yourself more vulnerable and open for someone to take advantage of you. So I would say really learning to center myself and use silence and meditation. Having a meditation practice in the morning, I think, is really, really valuable. And especially if you're going to be changing locations, and if everything around you is constantly changing, what are the core things that don't change no matter where you are? What are the core practices that help you feel good, that no matter where you are, you can do? you know, like meditation, like just doing some yoga asanas, you know, like just taking that moment to just shut off the cell phone, shut off all the external things, and just kind of close your eyes and go within and kind of check in, like, how am I doing? What do I need? Actually, and one of the best things I would say, traveling on the road, especially if you're going to places in Asia or countries where there's a much lower cost of living, you know, it can be really affordable to get a spa treatment and to like treat yourself. So when everything feels crazy, when everything feels new and uncertain and confusing, you know, it's like, first thing, ground yourself, get a good meal, and then maybe treat yourself to a spa, get a foot massage, get a back massage. You know, in Bali, there was like a 6-hour spa treatment for like $40, you know, or like a 4-hour spa treatment for $60. I can't remember which one it was, but either way, it was like ridiculous.
It was good.
And so I think, yeah, so I think like learning to prioritize self-care, no matter where you are in the world, is a really important practice and something that will ground us back into ourselves. Yeah, and I think that's especially important for these times when things are getting crazier and crazier and weirder in the world, because we're at this time of transition and change. It's like, okay, when everything around us is shifting, what's our anchor? What do we do? What do I need right now? And I think that's also it, just checking with myself. What do I need right now? What does Erica need right now? And sometimes the answer is a nap. I'm really overwhelmed by the streets of India right now. I think I just need to go into my room, light some incense that feels really familiar to me, and just rest. And don't try to do it all at once.
We're about out of time. I'm trying to ask everyone in these talks just one piece of advice for women or for people who are where you were 10 years ago, or I don't know how long it was, 12 years ago, who are want to take that step. They're right there. What would you say to them?
Here's what I would say. Are these people not sure if they're going to do it or not, or have they decided?
They're not sure, but there's that desire, there's that call.
Okay. To them, I would say, close your eyes and ask yourself, if you were to get to the end of your life and you were laying on your deathbed, knowing and remembering that you had this chance, go do this thing that you really wanted to do. And if you said no, if you refused the call, lying on your deathbed, how would you feel about that choice? Would you regret it? And if the answer is you would regret it, then I say, don't get to the end of your life with regrets about the chances and the risks you didn't take while you still had time. Because we are blessed as human beings with a precious human life. And it is our responsibility to use it to the fullness of our potential. Because we are like flowers, and and the universe wants to blossom us. It wants to prosper us. It wants to see us in our fullness. We have to be willing to step up and face our fears and believe in ourselves and believe that the impossible can be possible. And it's not an easy process, but anything is possible for those of us who dare to believe.
Thank you so much, Erica. Anyone does not have Erica's book yet, Leaving America with Erica, I believe it's available on Amazon. I believe there's a link to it in your bio.
Yep, correct? And the price is like the lowest. I'm like not even making much money on it. I put it at $7.99, the cheapest possible price, because I really want to just get this book into people's hands, because it's a message, it's a vibration, and it's a transmission of energy that is designed to help people face their fears. So if there's a thing that you want to do and that's calling to you, this book could be a really great tool to help you face your demons, face your darkness, and just step into the light, man, because that's where the treasure is. When you follow your heart, there you will find your treasure.
Thank you so much. And I want to just say hello and thank you again to everyone who tuned in with us. I saw a lot of love for Erica in the comments, so I just want to recognize that, all of those greetings and good mornings and hellos and shout outs.
See you guys. I love you guys. And Toby, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really an honor to connect with you and speak about these subjects. And I really hope that that this medicine reaches the people who are looking for it, and it helps them take that next step that their heart is calling them to take, because that's what it's about. You know, we're in a conflict between our mind and our heart, and it's like, choose your heart, man. Choose your heart.
Thank you, Erica. Likewise, such a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for joining in this Monday, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you very much, and thank you. I mirror that gratitude right back to you, Toby. Thank you so much for the work that you do, and thank you for this platform and for your voice and for being a wise woman in the world, because that is really the medicine that we need.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everybody. I love you. See you on my page.